is the percentage? What is the percentage of equity should be kept in the balance sheet? What is the percentage of debt to be kept in the balance sheet in order to maintain the ownership structure of the business, knowing fully well that each source of finance has its own underlying cost. So company wants to minimize the overall cost of capital. As a result, you need to know the proportion of equity and debt to be carried in the balance sheet. Because if a company carries more of debt in its balance sheet, then it means that the company may be exposed to a financial risk. Because if the company fails to pay the debt as and when due, the owners, the debt holders can decide to take over the affairs of the company. And that's why it is important at all time the shareholders must maintain the ownership structure of the business. So those are the key importance of cost of capital that we discussed in our last class. Not only that, I also mentioned to you that there are three categories of cost of capital, including the traditional weighted average cost of capital, the cost of capital of the project-specific cost of capital, and then the weighted average cost of capital of the combined activities. We started with the traditional weighted average cost of capital, and I said that whenever you want to calculate the traditional WACC, there are four procedures that you are going to carry out depending on the capital structure of the company. If in the question you have ordinary share capital, you have preference share capital, you have debt capital. In that case, you are going to carry out about four procedures to determine your weighted average cost of capital, which represent the overall cost of capital of a firm. The first step you are going to carry out whenever you want to calculate traditional WACC is you calculate cost of equity. Step 2, you calculate cost of preference share if you have preference share. Then step 3, you calculate cost of debt. That is in form of a bond, debenture, or loan note, or even bank loan. Okay. Then step 4, you go ahead and calculate the weighted average cost of capital. You can only use, I mentioned to you last week that you can only use the traditional WACC if and only if you are given the information of capital structure. If you are given capital structural information, you have debt in the capital structure, you have equity, you have preference share. It is only when you are given those information that you can use traditional weighted average cost of capital. Then I mentioned that the project-specific cost of capital will be the second to the last areas that we are going to touch under cost of capital. And I mentioned briefly that the project-specific cost of capital will be computed when a company is diversifying into a new industry, when a company is moving from one industry to another and there is need to undertake a project. So instead of you have to estimate a cost of capital that is consistent with the risk associated with the project. And I said, when we get there, I'm going to explain to you in detail. And I also mentioned to you that the weighted average cost of capital, which I usually call WACOCA, will be computed when a company is engaged in several activities at the same time. If this company is into communication business, a company is also into oil and gas. So instead of having different cost of capital to estimate instead of having different individual cost of capital to appraise a project. So it is important for the company to have a uniform, okay, a one cost of capital that will be suitable to appraise all the activities almost at the same time, okay? And of course, we now started with the traditional WACC. And I said that since you know that when you want to compute traditional WACC, those four procedures are supposed to carry out. Let us take it one by one. And I said that, okay, because as a company, you must have ordinary share capital. So if that is the case, we are going to start with cost of equity. How do you estimate cost of equity? We started with the definition of cost of equity. I mentioned to you that cost of equity represents the minimum rate of return expected by the ordinary shareholders from their investment in a company. And I said that there are basically three methods of computing cost of equity. One is using dividend valuation model. Two is using capitalized pricing model. Three is using Miller and Modigliani formula. We started with the first one, which is dividend valuation model. I said that dividend valuation model cost of equity using dividend valuation model represent the relationship between dividend and the share price. And I said that it will be computed depending on whether, I mean, the cost of equity using dividend valuation model will be computed as the ratio of dividend to ex-div share price. And I told you that the formula that you are going to use will depend on whether the dividend will remain constant or dividend will go to perpetuity. All of that are demonstrated for you. And I also we use practical examples, short examples to show how to compute cost of equity where there is growth and where there is no growth. Okay, then we move to calculating. Of course, I also explained to you the various methods of computing growth rate under cost of equity. And I mentioned that there are basically two methods of computing growth rate. One is historical method of dividend payment, then the other one is the Gordon growth. For the first one, which is historical pattern of dividend payment, I said that will be used when history of dividend paid is given year on year. When you are given the dividend paid across the several years included, I mean, given in the question, it means that you are supposed to use historical pattern of dividend payment, which is also known as averaging method. Okay, then of course, I gave you the two formulas that you can use depending on the information available. Then we proceeded to discussing the Gordon growth. And I told you that the Gordon growth will be used where you are given information on earnings, that is profit after tax, and the capital employed. When you are given capital employed and earnings of the company, then in that case, you are supposed to use the Gordon growth. Okay, you're supposed to use the Gordon growth to calculate the growth rate. When we finish calculating, of course, not only that, we also discuss the ex-div and cum-div share price. What do you mean by ex-div? What do you mean by cum-div? And I explained the two to you. And I mentioned that the ex-div share price include the share price that exclude dividends. I said the ex-div share price represents the share price that excludes dividend, and that it is the ex-div share price that you are going to need to calculate cost of equity, because you don't use cum-div share price. Then I mentioned to you what is cum-div share price. The cum-div share price represents the share price that include dividend. You don't use cum-div to calculate cost of equity. Therefore, when you are given a cum-div share price, you need to convert it to ex-div share price by deducting the current dividend from the share price given to you, then to arrive at the ex-div share price. Then, of course, after we are done with cost of equity, we move to cost of preference share. And I mentioned to you the cost of redeemable preference share and cost of irredeemable preference share. And I said the irredeemable preference share is the one in which the company will pay annual fixed dividend to perpetuity, but the principal will never be repaid. That is irredeemable preference share. And the cost of irredeemable preference share is computed as the ratio of fixed dividend to ex-div the share price. And I also mentioned to you that the concept under cost of equity in relation to cum-div ex-div share price will still apply under cost of preference share. So because the preference dividend must have been paid before you calculate cost of preference share. So we discussed that. Then we now move to cost of redeemable preference share. Under the cost of redeemable preference share, I also mentioned to you that cost of redeemable preference share represents is a type of preference share whereby the company will pay the annual fixed dividend and the principal at the maturity date. And I said that, of course, this redeemable preference share is computed as internal rate of return, and it can only happen. You can only calculate the cost of redeemable preference share if you are given the redemption date. If you are not given the maturity date, there is no basis of calculating cost of a redeemable preference share, because you won't know when to redeem it. Because if that redemption date is not given to you, then in that case, you are going to compute it as cost of irredeemable preference share. And I gave you two steps. There are just two procedures whenever you want to calculate your cost of redeemable preference share. One is to assume two discount rates that will produce two opposing NPV, and the other one is to calculate cost of redeemable preference share using internal rate of return formula. And then, of course, we have example under cost of redeemable preference share. Then we had another one for cost of redeemable preference share. Then finally, we move to cost of irredeemable preference share. Okay, and I said that the cost of debt represents the compensation required by the providers of debt capital from their investment in a company. And I mentioned that the debt is a cheaper source of financing because of tax deductibility benefit, and that in the event of liquidation, the debt holders will be settled before the preference shareholders and then the ordinary shareholders. Okay. And then, of course, there are redeemable, irredeemable, we have callable, non-callable debt. All of this I mentioned to you last time. And I will start with, and I mentioned to you that the cost of irredeemable and cost of redeemable are the main calculations that you have under debt. The other one are purely theoretical. Then we talk about the cost of irredeemable debt. I mentioned to you that, yes, Abiola, talk to me. Abiola, you raise hand, talk to me. Abiola, are you still there? Okay. All right. So, and I said that for the cost of irredeemable debt, and I said that it is computed as the ratio of fixed interest to X int price, and it will be computed depending on whether there is tax or there is no tax. So whenever there is tax, of course, the cost of debt, the cost of irredeemable debt that the company will pay will be cheaper relative to when there is no tax. So I demonstrated the two for you, where there is tax and where there is no tax. I think that is where we stopped in our last class. So today we are going to start with cost of redeemable debt. Yes, talk to me.
Okay, okay. So, sir, I actually want to ask two questions pertaining to the last class.
Okay, talk to me.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can hear you. Talk to me.
Okay, sir. Now, my first question is, under estimating the growth rate, where we are
Yeah.
dealing with estimating growth rate, we have two formula for historical patterns of dividend payments, sir.
Yes.
So my question here is, how do we know the particular one to solve the question?
Okay. So, Biola, were you in the last class?
Yes, sir.
So if you are in the last class, you could have seen my explanation. I explained it to you. I even use an hypothetical numbers. That's the first one, the historical pattern of dividend payment. When you are given the history of dividend paid year on year across all the years, I even listed it from year 1 to year 4. I put year 1, 5 naira, year 2, 3 naira, I listed all those number of amount of dividend paid, and I demonstrated it for you. Where you are given the history of dividend paid year on year, you use the one that has the growth rate equal to n minus 1 into square root latest dividend divided by the dividend paid in the first year. That was the first one I used for you. So that one you are going to use. Let me even show you so that we'll be on the same page. Now, this is what Biola is asking in the calculation of growth rates. Okay, in the calculation of growth rates, there are two methods. One is historical pattern of dividend payments. The other one is Gordon growth. He is asking, under the historical pattern of dividend payments, how do we know which that I gave them two methods, two formulas. So how do you know which one to use? And I said that I explained it in the class last week, such that when you are using the historical pattern, okay, when you are using the historical pattern of dividend payments, I gave you those two formula as G equal to N minus 1 into square root latest dividend over dividend paid in the first year, all minus 1. And I told you that this formula will be used when the history of dividend paid is given year on year. Say, for example, you have year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. The amount of dividend paid for year 1, say, for example, is 2 naira. Year 3, year 2 is 3 naira. Year 3 is 5 naira. Then year year 4 is 8 naira. So when you are given the history of dividend paid for across all the relevant years, if the history of dividend paid is given for all the relevant years, then you are supposed to use this formula, n minus 1 into square root latest dividend over dividend paid in the first year, all minus 1. So that in this case now, if I want to calculate my G, I'll just say G is equal to, my N is 4 because there are 4 years in this question. So my N will be equal to 4 minus 1 into square root. My latest LD is my latest dividend. The latest year, the current year is year 4, which is 8. So BD is dividend paid in the first year, that is base year dividend, which is 2. Then N minus 1. Mathematically, I'll put everything in my calculator. I'll get the final answer. Okay. If I don't know how to use square root in my calculator, I can convert it to solve. So you just say mathematics. I'll just say G is equal to 8 divided by 2 is equal to 4. Therefore, 4 raised to power 4 minus 1 is 3. So 4 raised to power 1 over 3, all minus 1. I will get the final answer. It's as simple as that. So you use this formula when the history of dividend paid is given year on year. The second formula, which is G is equal to N into square root latest dividend over dividend paid in the first year, all minus 1. So you can see this one does, the difference between the two is that this second one does not have minus 1. Okay, so you use this second one where the history of dividend paid in the first year and the current dividend is given. Say, for example, you are told in the question that the dividend paid 3 years ago, the dividend paid 3 years ago is 5 naira. Why the current year dividend is 8 naira. You can see in this case, examiner has given us dividend paid 3 years ago. So that's the first year dividend. And then the current year dividend is also given to us as 8 naira. So in this case, when I want to calculate my growth, I will just say latest dividend is 8 naira. Dividend paid 3 years ago is 5 naira. Then raised to power 1 over n. That is 3 years ago, n is 3 years. So 1 over 3, all minus 1. That's it. I will get my answer. So these are the ways in which you are going to calculate your growth rate depending on the information available in the question. Is it clear now, Biola?
Yes, sir. Very clear, sir.
All right then. So let's go to cost of.
Sorry, sir. Can I ask the second question, sir?
What is it? Talk to me.
Okay. Now, under the cost of redeemable preference shares,
Yes.
we solve a question, illustration 3. Now, in that question, we have a nominal rate of 8%. I just want to know that. I just want to have that. Is it possible for us to use the same nominal rate, 8%, for our discount factor to start with? You know, we have to assume a discount factor at first.
Yeah.
So can we get our discount factor, our assumption on this nominal rate?
You can't be doing that now. Your interest, if you do that, of course, you are at liberty to assume any discount rate that you want to assume. Okay, your nominal rates, the preference dividend you are going to pay is 8%. What you are now saying is that when you want to calculate the cost of redeemable preference share, can you assume 8%? You are at liberty to assume any two discount rate that will produce two opposing NPV. Provided you have two opposing NPV, you can assume any discount rate that you want. Whether you like, you use the 8% or use 10% or use 15% or use 2%, whatever rate that you think is appropriate is what you are at liberty to use any rate. Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so you're at liberty. Like, remember what I told you. whenever you want to calculate internal rate of return and you are to assume any discount rates, you always start from 10%. Reason being that if you assume 10% and 10% give you a positive NPV, you need to increase it to 15%. Okay, but if 10% is negative, you can easily reduce to 5%. Okay, so that is the starting point. But if you start, for example, for 5%, you assume 5%, 5% is positive, you increase to 10%, 10% is positive, you continue to do iteration, at least to reduce your stress. That's why it is important for you to start from the 10%, especially under cost of capital. If you are talking about capital budgeting, it's a different ballgame. All right? Okay, then. So let's move on.
Thank you, sir. Very clear, sir.
You're welcome. So let's move to cost of redeemable debts. Cost of redeemable debts. Yes, last week, like I said, we treated cost of irredeemable debts. So when you talk about cost of redeemable debts, is the one in which the company will pay annual fixed interest and the principal at the maturity date. When you talk about cost of redeemable debt or redeemable debt in general, the company is expected to pay annual fixed interest and the principal at the maturity date. So redeemable debts or debts can be redeemed at par, at a premium, or at a discount. So usually debt is quoted at 100 naira per unit, except if examiner says otherwise. At times, examiner can say that, okay, this bond is quoted at 1,000 naira. So, but in most cases, examiner will be silent. But you should know that debt is always quoted at 100 naira per unit. But if examiner give you 1,000 naira, then it is that 1,000 naira that you are going to use. All right. So debt can be quoted at a premium, at par, or at a discount. So because you know for sure that debt is usually quoted at 100 naira per unit, so if it's at par, it means that it will be at 100 naira. If it's at a premium, it will be more than 100 naira. It could be 105, it could be 5% a premium. Okay? If it is quoted at a discount, that means it will be less than 100 naira. Examiner can tell you that this debenture will be redeemed at 5% discount. When you are told that the debt will be redeemed at 5% discount, it means that at 95 naira. So you have to know the interpretation of all of these concepts. Okay, very, very important. Now, it's similar to the way we computed cost of redeemable preference share. When you want to compute cost of cost of a redeemable debt, you are supposed to calculate internal rate of return. So the cost of redeemable debt is simply means internal rate of return or yield to maturity. At times, you can also call it break-even rate of return. Okay, you can also call it break-even rate of return. So simply put, whenever you want to calculate cost of redeemable debt, just calculate the internal rate of return. Calculate the internal rate of return. And then, of course, all other principles that we discuss under cost of irredeemable preference share in relation to tax still apply under cost of redeemable debt. So let's take an example to demonstrate that. And then, like I mentioned, whenever you want to calculate cost of redeemable debt, there are two procedures. The first procedure is to assume two discount rates that will produce two opposing NPV. And the second procedure is to calculate the cost of redeemable debt using the internal rate of return formula. It's as simple as that. So there's no need to sweat over that. So quickly, let's have an example. Let's have an example to demonstrate that. Okay. Yes. Now, at times the examiner can, okay, when I get there, I will tell you the meaning of market value of debts. We'll come back to that later. Now, let's have this illustration number 9. I need somebody to read for us. Illustration number 9. Yes, somebody should read.
Emery PLC has 10% redeemable debentures in its capital structure. The debenture is currently quoted at 106x interest and it will be redeemed at par in 5 years' time. Required, calculate the cost of company's debenture.
Thank you very much, Faith. Yes, that is the question examiner is asking you to calculate cost of the company's debenture. So you need to ask yourself, what kind of debenture is this one? Is it redeemable or irredeemable? The only thing that differentiates redeemable and irredeemable preferred share is if you are given the redemption dates. In this particular question of Emery PLC, examiner has told you that the debenture will be redeemed at par in 5 years' time. That 5 years' time is the redemption date. If you are not given the redemption date, you cannot calculate it as cost of redeemable debt. It has to be irredeemable. But because we are given the redemption date, we need to proceed to calculating the internal rate of return. So I will stop sharing this and move to the working notes so that we'll be on the same page. Let me know if you can see my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then. Thank you. So I would then say Emery PLC. So we have to calculate cost of the company's debenture. So because I've seen redemption dates in 5 years' time in the question, I know it is cost of redeemable debenture. So I would then say calculating cost of redeemable debenture, KD. In calculating cost of redeemable debenture, I mentioned to you that there are two procedures that you are going to carry out. One is to assume two discount rates that will produce two opposing NPV. Then the second procedure is to calculate internal rate of return. Therefore, I will say assume 10%. So we are going to use this 10% to calculate NPV. So I will create a column for year, description of item, cash flow, discount factor, then present value. Okay, so year 0. Please, if you are not up, just mute yourself. So the redemption date, according to the question, is in 5 years' time. It means that the Emery will pay annual fixed interest from year 1 up to year 5. So year 1 to year 5. Here is the current market value of the debenture. Here is the fixed interest. Then year 5, this debenture will be redeemed at par. So redemption value. Okay, so let's put the numbers there. So we are assuming 10%. I would then say 10%. Let me outline my table. Okay. Right. NPV. Let me withdraw that. Here is 10%. Okay, then. So, I will then come here, put all the relevant value there. Current market value. I will go back to the question, what is the market price of this debenture? According to the question, we are told that the debenture is currently quoted at 106 naira x int. So the market price of the debenture is 106 naira. Ordinarily, I'm supposed to write down the 106 naira, but I will hold on first. I need to go back to the question and check if the debenture interest has been paid. But examiner has told us that this 106 naira is X int price. So it means that the debenture interest has been paid. Therefore, I can use the 106 like that. So I will then come here, 106. It's a cash outflow. Discount factor at year 0, 10% year 0 is 1. 1 multiplied by 106 is 106. Okay. Then I need to determine annual fixed interest. I will then go to the question, what is the annual fixed interest? And I told you that the interest amount is basically the coupon rate, the interest rates attached to the value of the debt. We are told that Henry PLC has 10% redeemable debenture in its capital structure. That 10% is the interest rate, is the coupon rate that the company will be paying from year 1 up to year 5. It is constant. It's not going to change. Therefore, when I want to calculate my NPV, I'm supposed to come and put 10 there because debt is usually quoted at 100 naira per unit. When I say 10% of 100 naira, that will give me 10. So always forget about the percentage. Just use the value you have there. Just use 10 instead of 10% because you are still going to multiply the 10% with 100. So just put 10 and forget about the percentage. Now, if in the question you are given tax rates, you are supposed to adjust for tax. You are not going to put down the entire coupon rate. So you are going to coupon payment rather. You are not going to put down the entire coupon payment or the interest expense. So you need to first of all adjust for tax. But in this question, we are not given anything like tax. Therefore, you ignore it. That means tax is not going to impact it. So I will just come in and put 10. Now, in year 5, the cash flow we are going to recognize in year 5, examiner has told us that it will be redeemed at par. At par means at 100 naira because debt is usually quoted at 100 naira per unit. So if it's at par, it means at 100 naira. Like I explained to you earlier, if it's at a premium, it will be more than 100 naira. If it's at a discount, it will be less than 100 naira. So now that we have all the relevant cash flows, the next thing I need to do now is to discount the cash flows. So for the fixed interest, the discount rate is 10%. We assume 10%. Therefore, I need to calculate annuity factor of year 1 to 5 at 10%. So what do you have there? Give it to me from your calculator. Annuity factor of year 1 to 5 at 10%. What do you have? Yes?
3.791.
3.791. Thank you, Viola. So here is 3.791. So 3.791 multiplied by 10 will give us 38 naira. Rounding. Then discount factor at 10% for year 5 will give us 0.621. 0.621 multiplied by 100 will give us 62. Therefore, 62 plus 38, that is 100. 100 minus 106 minus 6. So we assume 10%, we got a negative NPV. Let's assume a lower discount rate that will produce a positive NPV. So we're assuming 10% and then 5%. So I will then come here 5%. At 5%. Here will be 106. So somebody should give to me annuity factor of year 1 to 5 at 5%. What do you get? Let's move faster. Let's move faster. Yes. annuity factor of year 1 to 5 at 5%. Okay, somebody has given it to me. No, sir. 4.329. You are correct. So here is 4.329. When you multiply that with 10, that will give us 43. So discount factor of year 5 at 5% will give us 0.784. Multiply by 100, that is 78. So 78 plus 43, that's 121. 121 minus 106, that is 15, positive 15. So we assume 10%. We got a negative NPV of 6. We assume a lower discount rate of 5. We got a positive NPV of 15. Remember, the first procedure when you want to calculate cost of redeemable debt is that you have to assume two discount rates that will produce two opposing NPV. Now that we have the two opposing NPV, one positive NPV and one negative NPV, we then move to step 2, which is to calculate cost of redeemable debt. So in this case, I would then say KD, cost of redeemable debt, which is the same thing as internal rate of return, will be calculated as lower discount rates plus NPV of lower discount rates divided by NPV of the lower discount rate plus NPV of the higher discount rate. All of this multiplied by higher discount rate minus lower discount rates. So between 5 and 10%, 5% is lower. So here will be 5 plus NPV of that 5 is 15 divided by 15 plus NPV of the higher NPV. So NPV of the higher discount rate is 6. So all of this, let me rewrite that. Okay, so all of this multiplied by higher discount rate of 10 minus lower discount rate of 5. Final answer, give it to me. 5 divided by 21 equal, multiply by 5 equal, plus 5 equal. What do you get? Give it to me. Yes. What do you have? Who is giving me number? You have to participate. Thank you. 8.59. Thank you, Nosa. So 8.59. Okay. Sorry, my pen. It's not connecting yet. Just hold on. It will come back. Okay, it's back. So 8.57%. So approximately 9%. So the cost of redeemable debenture of Emery PLC is approximately 9%. Okay, it's approximately 9%. That is what examiner wants you to do. That's what examiner wants you to do, and that's what we have done. So this is how to calculate cost of redeemable debt. So let's solve a question where there is tax. How do you treat it when you have a tax, cost of redeemable debt where you have tax? So, but first thing first, let me know if you have any question on this based on what we have done so far. Any question for me? Okay, so let's move on. I will stop sharing this and move to the next, to the material. Let me see, do we have a question here? The question is not here. Where there is tax. Let me see. No. Okay. Let me stop sharing this. Let me stop sharing this. Let me open to, I'm looking for a question that involves, yes, I've seen it. Let's solve this example number 2 in my golden book. Let's solve that example number 2. This one is just to test how you are going to treat when you have cost of redeemable debt where there is tax. How do you treat it? Okay. So I need somebody to read for us. Ronaldoli PLC. Somebody should read. Ronaldoli PLC.
Ronaldoli PLC has an 8% redeemable debenture, currently quoted at 103 naira as of today, 28th December 2018. The debenture will be redeemed at par on 1st January 2022. The company has a policy of paying debenture interest every 31st December. What is the company's cost of debenture if 1. The company is not liable to pay tax, 2. The company tax rate is 40%.
Thank you very much, Diamond. No, is it Diamond? No,
It's
not
said,
Diamond.
sir.
Pardon?
No.
No, yeah. D is Diamond. Yes, I got it. It's okay. Thank you once again. Yes, in this particular question, examiner wants you to calculate the company's cost of a debenture. Number 1, if the company is not liable to pay tax, that is, tax will not be impacted. Tax will not impact the cash flow. So what do we do in this case? Of course, you can see that examiner has told us that debenture interest is usually paid every 31st of December. First thing first, before you move into solving this question, because the redemption date is not given to you. Examiner only told you that debenture interests are usually paid every 31st of December. However, you are told that the debenture will be redeemed at par on 1st January 2022. So the maturity date, the redemption date is given to you, but you don't have the maturity dates. You don't know when the debenture is going to mature. In this case, how do you treat it? Today is the 28th of December 2018. So you need to count how many years. Okay, you need to count from 2020 to 2018. Okay, to 2022. How many years do we have in between? You will agree with me that 2018 is already gone. It's not part of it because 28th December 2018 is gone, because before you can recognize a year, you have to count 12 months. So 28th December 2018 is not a year. It's just a day or a few days to the end of 2018. So you can't count that one. That one is not a year. So in 2019, you have a full year. 2020, you have a full year. 2021, you have a full year. 2022, 1st January 2022 is not a year, it's just one day. Therefore, it's 3 years. The maturity date is in 3 years' time. So this debenture will be redeemed in 3 years' time. So what that simply means is that the company will pay annual fixed interest for the next 3 years. Then in the 3rd year, the debenture will be redeemed at par, that is at 100 naira. So because number 1, there will be no tax. Since there is no tax, I don't need to worry myself. Okay? Since there is no tax, I don't need to worry myself. So I will just calculate internal rate of return on the basis of that. So let me stop sharing this and move to the working notes. Okay. The name of the company is Ronaldoli. Ronaldoli PLC. In case you are wondering where the question is coming from, I can share with you. I will screenshot it and send it to you, to your group, so that you'll be able to follow through. Okay, this is from the Golden Book. From Golden Book. That's from it. Okay. All right then. So let's move on. So I would then say calculating costs of redeemable debenture. Number one, where there is no tax. Okay. So where there is no tax, I will say assume 10%, just like we did in the first question. So create a column for year, description of items, cash flow, discount factor. Okay, if you want to use separate table, instead of using a combined table, you can use a separate table. In this case, if I want to use a separate table, I will just say at 10%, then I will have the present value of that. Okay, so year 0, we have identified from the question that the maturity date is in the next 3 years. Therefore, the company will pay annual fixed interest, okay, for the next 3 years, year 1 to 3. Then, in the 3rd year, the company will redeem, the debenture will be redeemed. Here is current market value. Here is fixed interest. Then here is redemption value. Then the cash flow, I will then go back to the question. What is the market price of this debenture? We are told that 8% redeemable debenture currently quoted at 103 naira as at today. As at today, 28th December 2018. Therefore, that 103 naira, in fact, let me quickly share, let me screenshot it and share with you so that I'll be speaking on the same page. I want you to have access to the question. I'm trying to share the question with you so that I'll be speaking on the same page. SFM online. Yeah. So you can go to the group and pick the question from there. I believe you have access to the question now. Hello? Do you have access to the question now?
Yes, sir, we do. Yes, sir.
Okay, then. So let's continue. So the current market value of 103 naira is cum int price because the debenture interest has not been paid as at 20th December 2018 because examiner told us that the company always paid, the company has a policy of paying debenture interest every 31st of December. So since today is 20th December 2018, we are yet to get to 31st December when debenture interest will be paid. That means the debenture interest is still outstanding. So that 103 naira will include the interest expense. So we need to deduct the amount of interest from the market value of the debenture. So if that is the case, I would then say I will go and do my working somewhere. So let's say our working will be here. Let me see. Do I have sufficient space? Okay, this should be all right. So working number 1, I need to make adjustments I need to determine X int price. I would then say X interest price. The X int price is calculated as the cum int price minus interest. So the cum int price is 103 naira. The interest that the company will pay is the coupon rate. The coupon rate is 8% redeemable debenture. And I told you that is always quoted at 100 naira per unit. So 103 minus 8 naira will give us 95 naira. Okay. So this is 95 naira. That means the ex-int price is 95 naira. Why are we using 95 naira? Because the debenture interest has not been paid. Today is 20th December 2018. And debenture interest, the company has a policy of paying debenture interest every 31st of December. We have not gotten to 31st of December. Today is 28th. That means the debenture interest is still outstanding. Since debenture interest is still outstanding, you cannot use the current market value of 103 naira because that 103 naira included interest. So you have to deduct the interest element. And that is why we got 95 naira. It is this 95 naira we are going to use to compute the cost of redeemable debenture. Okay, so I will then go up there and put the number. Here is 95 naira. Then discount factor at year 0 is 1. 95 naira. Move on. Interest. The coupon rate of this debenture is 8%, which is 8 naira, because 8% of 100 naira will give us 8 naira. So, but examiner has told us that the company is not liable to pay tax. Since the company is not liable to pay tax, I'm going to use the entire 8. Therefore, I need somebody to give me annuity factor of year 1 to 3 at 10%. What do you have? Please, let's be fast. Annuity factor of year 1 to 3 at 10%. What do you have? Yes. Are you guys still there? Thank you, Nosa. 2.487. Sorry. 2.487. Then this debenture will be redeemed at par in 3 years' time. So here is 100. Here is 7.751. Here is 75. 8 multiplied by 2.487. What do you have there? You guys are slowing down the class, and which is not good. You have to participate. 2.487. That's 19.89, 20. Rounded 20. So 20 plus 75, that's 95. 95 minus 95 will give us 0. Therefore, I've seen what I'm looking for. I've seen what I'm looking for. Therefore, I would then say the cost of redeemable debenture is 10%. Since internal rate of return is the rate that equates NPV to 0. Okay, that's it. So I've seen what I'm looking for. You know, we assume 10% and 10% produced 0 NPV. Remember, in your performance management, you are taught that internal rate of return is the rate that equates NPV to 0. That is, any discount rate that you assume that produce 0 NPV, that rate is your internal rate of return. So we assume 10% and 10% produce 0 NPV. It means that the cost of redeemable debenture is 10%. That is end of that. That is end of that. Then we then move to the second one, where there is tax of 40%. Where there is tax of 40%. So let's use a double table here. So assume 10%. Okay. year, items, cash flow, discount factor, then present value. Here is 10%. Okay, year 0, year 1 to 3, then year 3. The debenture will be redeemed at par. Okay. Right. There is 10%. So the current market value of the debenture is 95 naira. Then the fixed interest redemption value. Okay. So the examiner has told us that there is 40% tax. So in this case, I need to calculate post-tax interest. So I will then say post-tax interest. The post-tax interest is computed as interest multiplied by 1 minus tax rates. Interest is 8%. 1 minus tax rates, 1 minus 40%. So this will give me, of course, 8 into 0.60, which is equal to 4.8. So post-tax interest, after tax interest is 4.8. So instead of me to use 8, I will use 4.8 because of tax benefits. Then this will be redeemed at par, 100 naira. So here is 1. Here is 2.487. Here is 0.751. Here is 95. Okay. Here is 75. What do you have there? 4.8. 4.8 multiplied by 2.487. 4.8 multiplied by 2.487. 487. That's
12.
11 that's 12, rounding, 12. Thank you. So 12 plus 75, that is 87. 87 minus 95. That should be 8. Okay. Negative 8. Okay. So we assume 10%. We got a negative NPV. So let's assume a lower discount rate. So let's assume 5%. So at 5%, 5%. Here is 1. Therefore, annuity factor of year 1 to 3 at 5%, 1.05 raised to power 3 minus equal minus 1 equal divided by 0.05 equal, that's 2.723. Here is 2.723. Then, of course, for year 3 discount factor, 1.05 raised to power 3 minus equal 0.684. This is 0.6, 0.864 rather. 864. Here will be 86. Here is 95. So what do you have? 4.8 multiplied by 2.7 multiplied by 2.723.
13.
13. So 13 plus 86, that is 99. 99 minus 95 will give us positive 4. So we assume 10%. We got a negative NPV of 8. we assume a lower discount rate of 5%, we got a positive NPV of 4. Therefore, we put it in the IRR formula. So cost of redeemable debts, debenture, is equal to lower discount rate of 5 plus NPV of the 5 is 4 divided by 4 plus NPV of the higher, which is 8. All of this multiplied by higher discount rate of 10 minus lower discount rate of 5. Final answer. Final answer, 4 divided by 12, 4 divided by 12 equal, multiply by 5 equal, plus 5 equal, that's 6.67. Here is 6.67%. Approximately, cost of redeemable debenture is approximately 7%. So this is how to calculate cost of redeemable debts where there is tax, okay? Where there is tax. Thank you, Nosa. Yes. So you can see now, you can see this is what I was trying to tell you the other time, that debt is a cheaper source of financing where there is no tax. The company is paying 10% cost of redeemable debt. The company is paying 10%. But where there is tax, the company is only paying 7% because of tax benefits. You can see that's why we are saying that debt has tax deductibility benefits. There is tax benefit associated with financing with debt. So this is how to calculate cost of redeemable debt. Now, at times the examiner can ask you to calculate market value of debt. Okay? You may be asked to calculate market value of debt. Briefly, let's talk about that. But let me know if you have any question based on the calculation we have done so far. Any question for me so far? I don't like the way all of you are just quiet. You are not contributing. That's not good enough. You have to participate. Going forward, I'll be calling your name. I will not ask you, I will not ask a general question again. I'll be mentioning your name. You have to participate. Okay? Because you can't just be there doing nothing, just keep quiet. Maybe you are even doing something else. I don't know. Because I can't read you over there. Okay then. So in the absence of no question on the illustrations we just have, let's talk about market value of debt. Now, when you get to bond valuation and analysis, you are going to learn more about value of the bond and at the same time, how to estimate the value of bond. When you are asked to calculate market value of debt, the market value of debt represents the present value of future cash flows discounted at the cost of debt or due to maturity. Okay? I repeat, the market value of debt represents the present value of future cash flows discounted at the cost of debt or yield to maturity. All right. So whenever you are asked to calculate market value of debt, simply go ahead and calculate present value. It is present value. When you are calculating present value, all you need to do is to you don't include. It's the same way you calculate NPV. It's the same way you are going to calculate the present value of debt. The only difference is just that you are not going to include year zero, because once you include year zero, you are calculating NPV. So you are going to remove year zero. Just go ahead. Every other thing you normally do whenever you want to calculate NPV are what you are going to do. All the necessary adjustment, you are going to do it, but you don't include year zero. So just go ahead and calculate present value, and that's all. So whenever you are asked to calculate market value of debt or market value of preference share, just calculate present value. Okay, that's what the examiner wants you to do. All right. So let me see if I can even use, there's a question that we can use. Let me stop sharing this just to demonstrate for you how to calculate value of debt. Okay. Yes. Let's have this illustration number 8. Hazard PLC. Hazard PLC. Any one of you to read for me? Diamond, read. Diamond. Wura. Diamond, are you
Okay,
still there? Okay.
I'm here.
Yes. Illustration number 8. Read it for us.
Okay. Hazard PLC is financed with 8% redeemable debenture with a total nominal value of 10 million. This debenture will be redeemed in 10 years time at a premium of 5%. The current yield of the debenture is 7%. Required, calculate the unit value of the debenture.
Thank you, Diamond. Yes, you can see from the requirements, examiner did not ask you to calculate cost of debenture. You are asked to calculate the unit value of the debenture. Whenever you are asked to calculate the value of debenture, like I mentioned, the market value of debts is the present value of future cash flows discounted at the yield or at the cost of debt or at the yield to maturity of the debt. What do I mean by the present value of future cash flow? There are two cash flows associated with debt capital. There are two cash flows. One is the annual fixed interest, then two is the principal repayment. Okay, I repeat. Okay, let me just put it there. Let me go to working notes. I will stop sharing this and then move to the working notes. Okay. Yes. Solution to illustration number 8. Illustration 8. Okay. Now, the name of the company is Hazard PLC. So, examiner is asking us to calculate value of the debentures. I would then say calculating market value of debenture, MVD, or simply put, D. So as a definition, I said that the market value of debts represents the present value, of future cash flows. What are the future cash flows? That is the fixed interest and the principal repayments. Discounted at the yield or cost of debts or yield to maturity. Okay, that is how to calculate the market value of debt. It's just present value of future cash. There are two future cash flows in relation to debt because the company will pay annual. Because remember what I told you. This is for market value of redeemable debt. Okay, if it is irredeemable debt, market value of redeemable debt is just the future cash flow. Cash flow is the annual fixed interest. The principal will not be repaid. But this particular one, this definition is meant for redeemable debt. But if it is irredeemable debt, it is just the present value of future cash flows. The future cash flow will be the annual fixed interest because the principal will never be repaid. Okay, so in this case, to solve the question, I need to calculate my present value. Therefore, I would then say calculating present value. Please, when you're asked to calculate present value, don't go and be defining don't go and be given the definition. I only gave this definition for your own understanding so that we know what we are doing. You know the reason why we are doing it the way we are doing it. That is essence of giving you the definition of market value of debt. So on the day of your exam, don't go and be writing it. It's a waste of time. If you do it that way, of course, you are demonstrating your knowledge. You are not going to be penalized, but it's a waste of time. All right. But if you do it, if you have the time, you can do it. No penalty will be awarded. No penalty because you are even going extra mile to explain. That means that shows that you know what you are doing. Okay, then. So calculating present value of debenture. Okay. Therefore, so we are going to apply the definition now. So I'll create a column for here. Description of item, cash flow, discount factor, which is the yield. Okay. I will then go back to the question. What is the yield of the debenture? We are told that Azar PLC is financed with 8% redeemable debenture. That 8% is the interest rate, is the coupon rate attached to the redeemable debenture. So that is not the yield we are looking for. That is interest. There is difference between interest rate and the yield. The yield is the internal rate of return or yield to maturity or cost of debt. Okay. So the nominal value, the total nominal value of 10 million naira, that's not what I'm looking for. This debenture will be redeemed in 10 years' time at a premium of 105. The current yield of the debenture is 7%. That 7% is what I'm looking for. Examiner has given to me the yield, which is cost of debt. The yield is the same thing as cost of debt or yield to maturity or internal rate of return. Okay, so which is 7%. So I will then come here at 7%. Then I will determine the present value. Remember, I told you, whenever you want to calculate present value, you don't include year zero. So let us go back to the definition of debt, the market value of debt. I said the market value of redeemable debt represent the present value of future cash flow. That is, the future cash flows include the fixed interest and the principal. Therefore, here will be the fixed interest. Then here will be the principal, which is the redemption value. So the redemption date is in 10 years' time. So here will be 10. That means the company will pay annual fixed interest from year 1 to year 10. So if in the question you are given tax rates, then of course you are going to adjust your interest expense with the tax. But if you are not given tax, like in this case, we don't have anything like tax rate in the question. So you just ignore. So I will go back to the question. What is the interest rate? Interest rate is 8%. So that's the coupon payment. Coupon payment is 8. Just come and put 8 here. Okay, then it will be redeemed at a premium. Examiner has told us that this debenture will be redeemed at premium of 5%. Okay, so premium of 5% means 105. Okay, so I would then, because the par value is 100 naira, premium of 5% will be 5% of 100 naira, that's 5. So 5 plus 100 will give us a 105. Okay, so here will then be equal to 105. Please, you see the way this is the way I'm taking it systematically, step by step. It's not something you just rush, because when you get to bond valuation, all this thing I'm discussing with you are still going to do it when Mr. Shiwaji will be taking bond valuation and analysis. So it is important for you to have deep knowledge now. I have the fundamentals. I have the knowledge of the fundamental. You have to have the foundational knowledge so that you don't struggle when you get to bond valuation. So at this point, I need somebody to give me annuity factor of year 1 to 10 at 7%. What do you have there? See, you have to preempt. I don't need to be asking you. Since I put that 7%, you should know that I'm going to need annuity factor. You have to walk ahead of me. Don't let me ask you before you give it to me. Thank you, Nosa. That is 7.023. Okay. Nosa has given us 7.023. 023. For those of you that are not participating, you are not helping yourself. You are not helping yourself. Yes, for year 10, discount factor at year 10, 7%. What do you have there? Because I can't have you online, then I will be pressing calculator myself. So what do you want to do then? 0.508. Thank you. Thank you, Nusa. 0.508. So let's get the present value. So I would then say 8 multiplied by 7.023. That's 56. Thank you. Here is 56. Then the other one, 105 multiplied by 0.508. That's 53. 53. When you add the two together, that will give us 109. Therefore, the market value, 109. The market value of the debenture is 109 naira per unit. 109 naira per unit. This is how to calculate the market value of debt. Whenever you are asked to calculate market value of debt, just calculate present value. That's all. That's all you need to do. Okay, I believe it is clear now. So let's move to cost of convertible. Let's move to cost of convertible. Let me know if you have any question for me before we move to cost of convertible. Any questions so far? Any question? In the absence of no question, let's move to cost of convertible. Within the next 15, 20 minutes, we should be done with that. So let's talk about, I don't even need to switch. So let me just use this. Okay. Cost of convertible. Cost of convertible security. Okay. Now, when you talk about convertible security, the convertible security are fixed income security that have the attributes of convertibility or that can be converted to a known number of ordinary shares in the future. When you talk about fixed income security, they include the preference shares, okay, the preference share, the bond, debenture, or loan notes, because the income attached to those securities are fixed in nature. The preference dividend is fixed. The interest paid on the bond is fixed. The interest paid on debenture is fixed. The interest expense paid on the loan note is also fixed. So they are fixed income security. When you talk about convertible security, they represent the fixed income securities that can be converted to a known number of ordinary shares in the future. Okay, so that is what convertible security is all about. So when you are asked to calculate the cost of convertible security, the cost of convertible security is computed the same way you calculate the cost of redeemable debt or cost of redeemable preference share, depending on which one you want to calculate. So whenever you are asked to calculate cost of convertible security, calculate it the same way you calculate cost of debt, okay, cost of redeemable debt. It's as simple as that. Therefore, how do you then, now, what differentiates between cost of redeemable debt and cost of convertible debt? What differentiates it? When you talk about cost of convertible security, now, before you determine the cost of convertible security, you see, the debt holders or the investors in this case, will only convert to a known number of ordinary shares if it is profitable to do so. If it is not profitable, okay, the investor will just allow the debt or the security to lapse, just wait till the maturity date and redeem it. So whenever you want to determine the cost of redeemable debt, the same way you calculate your cost of redeemable preference share or cost of redeemable debt is the same way you are going to calculate cost of convertible debt. The only difference is that where you have the redemption value where you have redemption value, where you talk about the redemption at redeem at par, that place when you are calculating your NPV, where you have that redemption value, so you are going to select the higher of the redemption value or the conversion value. Whichever one that is higher is what you are going to put there. Okay, so now, like I said, I will recap. The cost of convertible security is computed similar to cost of redeemable debt or cost of redeemable preference share. The only difference is just that instead of redemption value, you are going to put conversion value. That's all. Because that is, you can only put conversion value if the conversion value is higher than the redemption value. But if redemption value is higher than the conversion value, then the investor will just allow the security to lapse on the maturity date, to the maturity date, and then we redeem it. So this is what you need to do under cost of a convertible security. Okay, so let's have, now before we have an illustration on that, let's talk about market value of convertible security. Examiner can ask you to calculate market value of convertible security. The market value of convertible security represent the present value of future cash flows. Okay, the market value, let me put it down. Let me just put it this one here first. The cost of convertible security is computed similar to cost of redeemable preference share or redeemable debts. Okay, that is you need that is internal rate of return should be calculated when computing cost of convertible security. The only difference is that the only difference is that either or let me put it this way. The only difference is that the higher of one, redemption value, or two, conversion value. Conversion value will be selected. Okay. So the higher of the two is what you are going to select. So instead of you to use redemption value, you may likely use conversion value if conversion value is higher than the redemption value. That's just the difference between the two. So when you now talk about market value of convertible security, this represents the present value of future cash flows. Okay, that is fixed interest or fixed dividend if it is preference share, and the principal, okay, discounted. In this case, this principal is the redemption value, okay? Let me change it to, instead of principal, redemption value, sorry, conversion value. Conversion value discounted at the yield or cost of the security, cost of the security. So that is how to calculate market value of convertible security. Okay, is the present value of future cash flows. If you want to calculate cost of convertible preference share, so it will be the present value of future cash flow, which is future cash flow will be the annual fixed dividend and the conversion value discounted at the rate of return or converted at the cost of the preference share. Okay, but if it is debt, then it will be the future, the present value of future cash flow, that is the fixed interest and the conversion value of the debt discounted at the yield of the debt. Okay, that's that. That's how to calculate the market value of convertible security. So let's have illustration so that you get the point, what I'm trying to communicate. Let's practicalize it so that we'll be on the same page. Let me see. Let me see. I have a question. Okay, somebody should read illustration number 14. In fact, I don't need somebody. Let me call one of you. Since you have refused to participate, I will make you work. Yes. Randomly. Kiawa, I need you to read, please.
Good evening, sir. Can you hear my voice?
Yeah, I will manage. What happened to your voice?
I lost my voice. I'm not feeling so well.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Don't worry. Don't worry. Let other person read it. I pardon you. I pardon you. I know when you are fit, you read. Kevin, please read. Kevin. Kevin, are you still there? Or you have gone to watch match? Kevin. You see? Anyways, let's move to the next person. Yes, Obi. Obi, read. Obi, are you there? Obi. Okay. Let me see. Yes, Wumi, please read. Omo Wumi. Omo Wumi. I think you told me the other time that you are still in the office. Omo Wumi, are you there? Okay. So are you saying all of you that I've mentioned so far, you are just a dummy? You are you are present in this class through proxy. Apology, I'm still in session. Oh, well, hey, I can imagine what you are going through over there with me. No worry, it is well. Okay, yes, let me look at. Ibukun, please read. IBK. I've called about 5 people now. None of them is available. Ibukun, read, please.
Okay, illustration 14. That's like I said, PLC, right?
Yes.
Okay. So
Thank
that
you.
PLC has an issue, has an issue a convertible debenture with a coupon rate of 12%. Each 100 naira unit may be converted to 20 ordinary shares at any time until the expiry date, and any remaining debenture will be redeemed at 100 naira. The debenture has 5 years to run. Investor will normally require a rate of return of 8% per annum on the 5 years debt securities. Should the investor convert if the current share price is 4 naira, 5 naira, or 6 naira?
Thank you, Ibukun. Now, in this particular requirement, examiner wants you to determine the current share price at which the investor should convert to a known number of ordinary shares. We are
Sorry,
told
sir,
in the
please. I can't see the question.
you can't see it.
Yes, I can't find it.
It's in the
It's
illustration
not
number
showing on the
14.
screen.
It's not showing.
No, sir.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'm presenting the Word documents. Can you see it now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, you can see in this particular question, examiner is asking you to determine the price at which the investor should convert. Should they convert at 4 naira, 5 naira, or 6 naira? In this particular requirement, or in this particular question, examiner did not ask you to calculate cost of convertible security. Rather, you are to determine the price, the value at which the investor should convert. Okay. So if that is the case, what are you supposed to do? The most important thing you need to do in this case is to calculate. You need to determine as of today, what is the current market price? What is the current market value of this debenture? Okay, when you determine the current market value of the debenture, you now determine the price at which you need to convert. That current market value will be the redemption value, the current market value if you want to redeem the debenture versus what is the price at which you should redeem this debenture, you should convert this debenture to a known number of ordinary shares. Okay, so examiner told you that each 100 unit of the debenture may be converted to 20 ordinary shares at any time until the expiry date, and the remaining debenture will be redeemed at 100 naira. So the most important thing you need to do to solve this particular question is there are 2 stages. The first stage is to determine the current market value if you want to redeem the debenture, because you are going to compare the conversion value versus the redemption value. So any price that is higher than the redemption value will be the price at which the debenture should be converted, the investor should convert. Okay, so the first stage is for you to determine the current market value of the debenture if the company wants to redeem it. Then step 2 is to determine the value, the conversion value. Okay, the conversion value at 4 naira, at 5 naira, and at 6 naira. Then anyone that is higher than the current market value, then will be the price at which the investor should convert. Quickly, let's go through that together. I will stop sharing this and move to the working notes. Okay. I think that's illustration number 14. Yes. So solution to illustration 14. So in this case, like I said, examiner wants us to determine should investor convert at share price of 4 naira, 5 naira, and 6 naira I mentioned to you there are two stages. The first stage, you need to first of all determine the current market value, as if the company wants to redeem the debenture. You keep it on one side. Then step two, you need to determine the conversion value. Remember what I told you. Investor will only convert to a known number of ordinary shares if and only if it is profitable to do so. If the conversion value is higher than the redemption value, then the investor will convert. Other than that, the investor will just allow the debenture to lapse, to mature, and then redeem it. That's what will happen. So the name of this company is Lacassetti PLC. Here is Lacassetti PLC. So the first thing you need to do is to determine the current market value. So current, calculating current market value of the redeemable debenture of redeemable debenture. So you are going to calculate present value as if you want to redeem the debenture. Okay, so create a column for year, description of items, cash flow, discount factor, then we have the present value. I will then go back to the question. If the company wants to redeem this security, what is the redemption date? We are told that per annum on the 5 years debt security. So the debenture has 5 years to run. So that means if the company wants to redeem if this debenture is going to be redeemed, it will be in the next 5 years. Therefore, year 1 to 5, the company will pay annual fixed interest. Okay, then at the final year, it will be redeemed at par, redemption value. Okay, so I will then go back to the question. What is the interest rates that the company will pay? What's the interest rates? We are told that investor will normally require a rate of return of 8% per annum on the 5 years debt security. That 8% is the yield. The coupon rate is 12%. We are told that Lacassetti PLC has in issue a convertible debenture with a coupon rate of 8%. Coupon rate is the same thing as interest rates. So that is 12%. There is no tax. Therefore, I would then come here. Here will be 12. Forget about the percentage. I've said that before. Then at what discount rate? What is the yield? According to the question, the yield is 8%. That's the yield is the same thing as rate of return. Please, all these little things you have to jot it down so that you don't have to go back, you don't have to struggle when you see it in a bigger question. Yield is the same thing as rate of return. Here is 8%. Okay. Therefore, I need to calculate annuity factor of year 1 to 5 at 8%. 1.08 raised to power 5 minus equal minus 1 equal divided by 0.08 equal 3.993. Here is 3.993. Then, in 5 years' time, this debenture will be redeemed. How are they going to redeem it? Is it at par or at a premium? We are told that the remaining balance, the remaining debenture will be redeemed at 100 naira. 100 naira means at par. So here is 100 naira. So discount factor at 8%, year 5, 1.08 raised to power 5 minus equal 0.681. Here is 0.681. Here is 68. Then 12 multiplied by 3.993 equal, that's 48. Here is 48. 48 plus 68, that's 116. Total market value. Here is 116 naira per unit. So the current market value of of the debenture is 116 naira. So if the company wants to redeem this debenture, then the market price of that debenture is 116 naira. So I need to compare this 116 with the conversion value. So I need to determine the conversion value next. Number 2 stage, calculating conversion value. Okay. We have number of shares, share price, then conversion value. 20 shares. 20 shares at 4 naira, 5 naira, then 6 naira. So conversion value will then be 20 shares multiplied by 4 naira will give us 80 naira, 100 naira, then 120 naira. So examiner is asking you, should investor convert at 4 naira, 5 naira, 6 naira? Remember what I told you when I was explaining cost of convertible security or market value of convertible security. I said investor will only convert if and only if it is profitable to do so. Once the conversion value is higher than the redemption value, then the investor should convert. So if you want to redeem this debenture, the market value is 116 naira. So examiner is asking you, should the investor convert at 4 naira, 5 naira, and 6 naira? So you need to compare 16 naira with 80 naira. If you allow this debenture to mature, the investor will earn 116 naira. If you want to convert it to number of shares, the investor will earn 80 naira. Will the investor convert? Please, I need you to answer this.
No.
Would the investor
sir.
convert? No, because 80 naira is lower than 116 naira. Therefore, investor will not convert. At 5 naira, conversion value is 100 naira. You compare the conversion value of 100 naira versus redemption value of 116 naira. Would investor convert at 5 naira?
No.
No, because the conversion value is less than the redemption value. So investor will never convert. At share price of 6 naira, conversion value is 120 naira. 120 naira versus current redemption value of 116 naira. Would the investor convert at 6 naira per share?
Yes.
Yes, because 120 naira is higher than 116 naira. Therefore, investor will convert. I will then come here, the investor. Okay, the investor will not convert at the share price of 4 naira and 5 naira because the conversion values at these prices are lower than the current market value of 116 naira. However, the investor should convert to ordinary share at the share price of 6 naira. Since the conversion value of 120 naira is higher than the current market value of 116 naira. That's it. That's it. So that's what the examiner wants you to do, and that's what we have done. Please take your time, go through the material once again so that you can have a better understanding. Okay, so let's have one more illustration on this. In case you may be asked to determine cost of convertible security, how do you determine cost of convertible security? Let me stop sharing this. Okay. Let me see. Cost of convertible security. Yes. Let's solve this illustration number 15. Illustration number 15. Who will read for us? Let me look at. Yes. Who has not spoken today at all? Kevin, are you back now? Kelvin. Okay. Oh, don't worry. I reserve my comments. Thank God the journey is still far. I will show you Shege. Wellington, please read.
Okay, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Yes, sir. Singapore Limited has 10% convertible debenture with a current market value of 106 naira. An interest payment was made recently. The debenture will be converted to equity shares in 4 years' time at the rate of 4 shares per 10 naira of debenture. The shares are expected to have a market value of 3 naira 50 kobo each at that time. What is the cost of capital to the company for the convertible debentures when company tax rate is 40%, and assume that tax payment occurs in the same year that the interest payment arises?
Thank you very much. Yes, that is the question examiner is asking you, to determine the cost of capital to the company for convertible debenture when company tax rate is 40% and assume that tax is paid in the year profit is the interest payment is made. So you want to determine cost of convertible debenture. And I told you whenever you want to compute cost of convertible debenture or cost of convertible security, simply go ahead and calculate internal rate of return. It's the same way you calculate cost of redeemable debt or cost of redeemable debenture, cost of redeemable preference share. It's the same thing. The only difference is just that instead of you to use the redemption value, you are going to use the conversion value if the conversion value is higher than the redemption value. That's all you need to do. It's as simple as that. The same internal rate of return is what you are going to calculate. So if that is the case, let me stop sharing this and move to the working note. Okay. The name of the company is Singapore. Is it a limited or PS? Yes, limited. Singapore Limited. Solution to illustration. What's wrong with you? So illustration number 15. Okay. Now, examiner wants us to determine cost of convertible debenture. So it's the same thing, like I said, the same internal rate of return. So I would then come here saying calculating cost of convertible debentures, KD. So assume 10%. Okay, so we use this 10% to compute NPV. Create a column for year, description of items, cash flows, discount factor, adds, then present value. Okay. Yes, I will then go back to the question. What is the maturity date? We are told that the debenture will be converted to equity shares in 4 years' time. It is in the 4 years' time that the investor will exercise the rights. Okay, that is that's the date at which the investor will exercise the rights. So if that is the case, I will then come here, year 0. This is current market value of the debenture. Year 1 to 4, the company will pay annual fixed interest. I will go to the question, are we given tax rates? Yes, there is tax of 40%. So I can't just use the coupon rate of 10%. The convertible rate of 10%, I can't use that 10% because there is tax. I need to go and adjust for tax. Then in year 4, you see, normally when we want to compute NPV, if it is redeemable debenture or redeemable preferential, what we normally do is to come and put redemption value here. So, but we are not going to put the redemption value. We need to go and compare the redemption value with the conversion value. Whichever one that is higher is what that will come here. That's what I said, that the cost of convertible security is calculated the same way as cost of redeemable debt. The only difference is just that the higher of conversion value or redemption value will be taken. So let's move on. First thing first, let's determine what is the current market value. Let's go back there. Singapore Limited has 10% convertible debenture with a current market value of 106 naira. An interest payment was made recently. Therefore, that 106 naira is X-int price since the interest payment was made recently. So, yes, I will then come here 106. Then I need to determine the fixed interest, annual fixed interest. So the coupon payment is 10%, 10% convertible debenture. But since examiner has given to us tax rate of 40%, so we need to go and adjust for post-tax. We need to go and calculate post-tax interest. So working number 1, I want to calculate post-tax or after-tax interest. The after-tax interest is computed as interest multiplied by 1 minus tax rates. So interest is 10%, multiplied, tax rate is 40%, 1 minus 0.40, that's 6, which is equal to 10 into 0.60, here is equal to 6. So after tax interest or post-tax interest is equal to 6. Yes, so I will then go there and put 6. Here will be 6. Now, at 10%, we're assuming 10% first. So here will be 1. Okay. Let me demarcate. Okay. Net present value. All right, move on from here. So somebody should give me annuity factor of year 1 to 4 at 10%. Year 1 to 4 at 10%. 2.4.
3.17.
3.17. Rather. Thank you. 3.170. Okay, here will be 106 at 10%. 6 multiplied by 3.17. 3.6 multiplied by 3.17. That's 19. Here is 19. Now, we want to determine the present value of the redemption or conversion value. So whatever that will come here will be the higher of redemption value or conversion value. So let's first of all determine the conversion value. Working number 2, we know redemption value. Redemption value is equal to 100 naira. Because when you redeem at par, it will be at 100 naira. So we need to compare this. Let me rewrite this. Okay, let me just leave that one. Redemption value is equal to 100 naira at par. It's redeemed at par. Then number 3, I need to determine conversion value first. For the conversion value, I will then go back to the question. How are we going to convert the debenture to a known number of ordinary shares? We are told that the debenture will be converted to equity shares in 4 years' time at the rate of 4 shares per 10 naira of debenture. The shares are expected to have a market price of 3 naira 50 kobo each as at that time. Therefore, this is very straightforward. 4 shares at a nominal price of 10 naira multiplied by the market price of 3 naira 50 kobo. So 40 multiplied by 3.5. What do you have? 40 multiplied by 3.5.
140.
140. 140. Therefore, the higher of 1 redemption value of 100 naira, or number 2, conversion value of 140 naira will be selected. So since 140 is higher than 100 naira, therefore we can advise the investor to convert the debenture to a known number of ordinary shares, because 140 is higher than 100 naira. I will then come here. So instead of me to put redemption value, it will be conversion value. Conversion value, 140. So discount factor at 10% for year 4. This will give us 0.683. Please confirm. So 140 multiplied by 0.683 equal, that's 96. Here is 96. So 96 plus 19 equal minus 106 equal, that's 9. Here is positive 9. Okay, here is positive 9. So we assume 10%, we got a positive NPV. Let's assume a higher discount rate to get a negative NPV. So we assume 10 and then 15%. Here is 15%. Here is 15%, 106. So somebody should give me annuity factor. Year 1 to 4 at 15%. Yes. This one is 0.57172. Are we together? Are we still together?
Yes, sir.
So you guys should give me numbers. Yes, that should be no, sir. What is the new message? 2.855. That is from no, sir. Thank you. Here is 2.855. So 6 multiplied by 2.855 equal, that's 17. Then 140 multiplied by 0.572 equal 80. That's 97. 97 minus 106 minus 9. Okay, so we assume 10%, we got a positive NPV of 9. We increase to 15%, we get a negative NPV of 9. Therefore, we compute cost of convertible debenture. Okay, cost of convertible debenture, KD. So KD is equal to lower discount rate of 10 plus NPV of that 10 is 9 divided by 9 plus 9 multiplied by 15 minus 10. Final answer. Cost of convertible debenture is equal to 9 divided by 18. That should be 12.5. 12.5%. Approximately, cost of convertible debenture is approximately 13%. So this is how to calculate cost of convertible security. No matter how big is the question, it's the same principle. Okay, you can see it's nothing different from the cost of redeemable debt or cost of redeemable preference share. The only difference is just that instead of you to use the redemption value, we are using conversion value. It's as simple as that. Okay. So let me know if you have any question. If there's none, then we'll move to weighted average cost of capital. So far, so good. Any question for me? Okay, I want to believe you are fine. Let's move on to weighted average cost of capital. Yes, let's talk about weighted average cost of capital. Let me stop sharing this. Or should I even continue with the workbook? Okay, let me just share the material. Work. Here. Now, let's talk about weighted average cost of capital. The weighted average cost of capital represents the overall cost of capital to a firm, all right? And it is calculated as the cost of capital of each source of financing weighted according to the proportion of each capital in the company's total pool of resources. You know, like I mentioned to you when we started this topic, I mentioned to you that whenever you want to compute weighted average cost of capital using traditional method, the steps that you are going to carry out will depend on the capital structure of the company. If you are given capital structural information, it means that, of course, you are expected to calculate cost of equity, cost of preference share, and cost of debt if the three of them are present in the balance sheet or in the capital structure of the company. However, if you, of course, as a company, you must have ordinary share capital. In most cases, it may be that you are going to have ordinary share capital and debt capital. So in that case, there are just three procedures that you are going to carry out, which is calculate cost of equity, calculate cost of debt, then calculate the overall cost of capital, that is weighted average cost of capital. So, but the most important thing is that whenever you want to calculate your traditional work, so you are expected, and that's why we started from cost of equity. I demonstrated for you how to calculate cost of equity, how to calculate cost of preference share, and now how to calculate cost of debt. So we are moving to weighted average cost of capital, and I'm now telling you that the weighted average cost of capital represents the overall cost of capital for a firm, weighted according to the proportion of each source of capital in a company's total pool of capital. Let me explain that. For example, in an ideal capital structure of a company, you may have ordinary share capital. Say, for example, ordinary share capital is 5 million, figures in million. Then we also have preference share capital. Preference share capital is, say, for example, before that, say you also have reserve. I'm going to need this information later. So let's say we also have reserves. Reserves is about, say, 2 million. Then we have preference share capital to be 4 million. We have debt capital. We have debt capital to be 3 million. When you add everything together, this is about 14. This is about 14. However, when you want to determine the proportion of, we are saying that the weighted average cost of capital represents the overall cost of capital for a firm, weighted according to the proportion, excuse me, according to the proportion that each source of capital is having in the company's total pool of capital. Now, when you want to determine the total pool of capital, in this case, the pool of capital will be 5. Will be 5, 4, and 3. Reserve is not part of the capital. So when you add it up, this will give us 12. So if I want to weigh the proportion of equity, using market value, my concern would be, of course, equity will be 5 divided by the total. Total is 12. I will get the percentage. If I want to get the proportion of preference share, it will be 4 divided by 12. That will give me the percentage of preference share capital in the company's total pool of capital. If I want to determine the proportion of debt, it will be 3 over 12. Okay, so, but first thing first, before I get the weight, I must calculate the cost of capital of individual source of finance. What is the cost of equity? What is the cost of preference share? What is the cost of debt? So once I have the cost of individual source of finance, then I can now weigh it. I can weigh it according to the proportion each of them is having in the company's total pool of capital. This is how to calculate weighted average cost of capital. Now, in calculating weighted average cost of capital, there are 2 methods. You can either use book value method or you use market value method. You can either use book value or market value. At all time, it has to be market value because market value is the value determined by the market forces of demand and supply. Okay, so that is the price most acceptable. The book value is the value you have in the balance sheet, which are historical. All right. So except examiner says otherwise, at all time, it has to be market value. Whenever you want to calculate weighted average cost of capital, the weight, the proportion of equity and debt, or the proportion of each source of finance must be based on market value. It is only when the examiner wants you to use book value that you use book value. Other than that, it has to be market value at all time. I believe that is clear. Now, whenever you want to calculate market value, remember I mentioned to you, when you are asked to calculate, when you want to calculate the weighted average cost of capital based on market value, is the same thing. It's the same formula, whether it is based on market value or based on the book value. It's the same formula that you are going to use. We are going to get there. But first thing first, whenever you want to calculate weighted average cost of capital, you need to calculate cost of individual source of finance. What is cost of, you go and calculate cost of equity, you calculate cost of preference share, you calculate cost of debt, then you now weight according to the proportion. Now, when you want to calculate WACC is denoted as KW. Let me quickly use formula because of time. So you need to determine the market value of equity. What is the value of equity divided by equity plus preference share plus debt? Okay, multiply by, I hope this space will be sufficient for me. Let me move down.
Hello?
Okay. So when you want to calculate the weighted average cost of capital, say, for example, the three sources of long-term finances are present in the capital structure. So determine the equity value over equity plus preference share plus debt value multiplied by cost of equity plus value of preference share divided by equity plus preference plus debt value multiplied by cost of preference share plus debt value over equity plus preference share plus debt value multiplied by after tax cost of debt. All of that multiplied by 100%. So this is the formula you are supposed to use to calculate your weighted average cost of capital if the three sources of long-term financing are present in the company capital structure. Now, I'm now saying that all this one, and this one, okay, will depend on whether you are using market value or book value to determine the weight or the proportion of equity and debt in the company's total pool of capital. So if you want to use market value, remember, I said market value of equity is the present value of future cash flows discounted at the rate of return or cost of equity. The future cash flows under equity is the dividend, okay, is the dividend. All right, the future cash flow that the company will pay is the dividend. Therefore, the market value of equity represents the present value of future dividend payments discounted at the rate of return or cost of equity or dividend yield. Whichever one you want, however you want to put it, is the same thing. Again, the market value of preference share represents the present value of future cash flows. What is the future cash flow of preference share? The future cash flow include the fixed dividend and then principal repayment if it's a redeemable preference share. But if it is irredeemable preference share, it is only the fixed dividend. So discounted at the cost of preference share or rate of return of the preference share. The market value of the debt represents the present value of future cash flows discounted at the yield or the rate of return of the debt. So the future cash flow, if it is irredeemable debt, then the future cash flow will then be the fixed interest. But if it's a redeemable debt, the future cash flow will be the fixed interest and the principal repayment. All of these things you have to know them. So if you are using market value, let me show you how to calculate market value. In fact, let me switch to the working note so that, or let me see if I can have this. Okay, let me just go. Now, this is what I'm saying. When you want to calculate, okay, let me just show you. Calculating, this is where we are going to stop today. Calculating market value. This is very important because when we get to project specific, you are going to need this information. When you get to valuation, business valuation, you also need this information. So it's important for me to explain to you in details how to calculate market value. So whenever you want to calculate market value of equity, market value of equity, denoted as E. So market value of equity is computed as number of shares multiplied by XDiv share price. If in the question you are given number of shares, this is the formula you are going to use. But where number of shares is not given to you, then the market value of equity will be computed as share capital divided by nominal price, that is the book value per share, multiplied by XDiv share price. So this is the formula for calculating market value of equity. Watch out. Then market value of preference share of preference share. P. The market value of preference share is computed the same way as market value of equity, which is number of shares multiplied by XDiv share price. Again, if the number of shares is not given, then number of shares can be determined as share capital divided by nominal price. Okay, divided by nominal price or nominal value multiplied by XDiv share price. You will notice that it's the same formula as market value of equity. Okay, so share price. Then lastly, market value of debt, D, denoted as D. So whenever you want to determine market value of debt, okay, so you are going to pick the nominal value. D is equal to nominal value multiplied by X int price, divided by 100 naira. Remember, debt is always quoted at 100 naira per unit. So this is the formula you are going to use to calculate the market value of debt. So you can see, so when you want to calculate your weighted average cost of capital, you need to go and do your workings for market value. In most cases, examiner will be silent. Examiner will not tell you to use market value or using the book value to calculate your work. So it is implied you have to use the price determined by the market forces of demand and supply, which is market price in this case. So at all time, it has to be market price, except if examiner wants you to use book value. Okay, so this is how to calculate the market value of equity, market value of preference share, and the market value of debt. Then thereafter, we then proceed to calculate your weighted average cost of capital. I've already shown you, I've given you the formula that you can use to calculate the weighted average cost of capital. If you don't want to use formula, you can also use table to calculate your weighted average cost of capital. So you are going to get the same thing, okay, using tabular method. Okay, so using tabular. This thing is too sensitive. Tabular method. So instead of using formula, you can also use table. So you create a column for the type of the security. So you create a column for the value of the security. It could be book value, it could be market value. Then, of course, you have a column for the proportion. Proportion is the cost of capital of individual source of finance. Proportion, then we have the ash total. Okay, you have the ash total. This is usually in naira. This is in percentage. Okay, so you can have equity here. You can have preference share. You can have debts. Whatever you have there, put it there. Either it is book value or market value. Then you need to first of all go and calculate cost of capital of individual source of finance. That's where you have the proportion. You can call it cost of capital proportion, whatever. So the percentage, put it there. What was cost of equity, cost of preference share, cost of debt, put all of them there. So to get the ash total, just multiply the value with the proportion, it will give you the ash total. So you total, you add up the total value, then you also add the total, the ash total. You add up the value and then the ash total. This is total. Okay. So let's say you have this guy. Then your weighted average cost of capital will then be calculated as ash total divided by the total value divided by the total value multiplied by 100 over 1. So whether you use this tabular method or you use the formula I showed you earlier on, you are going to get the same answer. So nothing is different. Okay. Now, one more important thing I need to explain to you before we leave the class tonight is that whenever you want to calculate market value and the examiner wants you to use book value, then you are expected to add. Okay, let me go back to the other sheet. I've already given I gave an example there. Okay. Now, whenever examiner wants you to calculate weighted average cost of capital using book value, you are expected to add together ordinary share capital and reserve. So you add ordinary share capital and reserve whenever you want to calculate weighted average cost of capital using book value. So you are going to add ordinary share capital and reserve to form the proportion of equity. Okay? You are going to add ordinary share capital and reserve to form the proportion of equity. Okay, please note that. I repeat, when calculating weighted average cost of capital using book value, ordinary share capital and reserves must be added together to form the proportion of equity. On the final note, I repeat, when calculated weighted average cost of capital using book value, ordinary share capitals and reserves must be added together to form the proportion of equity. Now, if that is the case, in these hypothetical numbers that I have here, if I want to calculate the proportion of equity, I'm supposed to add together ordinary share capital plus reserve. In this hypothetical number, the proportion of equity will then be equal to 5 plus 2 divided by the total value of 14. So this will give me 7 over 14, which is 50%. So in the company capital structure, equity will have 50%. Therefore, preference share will then be equal to 4 over 14. Here will be 4 divided by 14. Then debts will be equal to 3 over 14. Here will be 3 over 14. Okay, this is what you need to do whenever you want to calculate weighted average cost of capital using book value. What is important is that you are going to add together ordinary share capital plus reserve to form the proportion of equity in the company's total pool of capital. So watch out. So this is where we are going to call it a day. In our next class, by the grace of God, we are going to have illustrations, purely illustrations different illustrations to calculate weighted average cost of capital. If I'm able to solve at least 3 illustrations on that day for weighted average cost of capital, I will be fine. So that in our final class in this month, in the month of January, then we'll be having a project-specific cost of capital and then the weighted average cost of capital of the combined activities. So that is that for today. Let me know if you have any question for me before we close the class. Yes, I saw Christy. What happened? You joined late. Talk to me, Christy.
Yeah, it was because of work.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
But I'll listen
Pele.
to the recording. I'll listen to the recording.
It's okay. It's all right.
Thanks,
So,
sir.
you're welcome. Yes, Kevin, are you back now? Kevin. Okay. Oh. Obi, are you back? Okay.
Yes, sir.
At last. I've been shouting your name. I've been crying, Obi, 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 Obi. You refuse to
I'm
answer.
sorry, sir.
I'm
here
okay.
now.
Okay. I reserve my comment too.
Thank you, sir.
All right, no worries. Okay, guys, so that will be the end of today's class. In our next class, we are going to be having illustrations on weighted average cost of capital. Please do well to go through all our discussion for today, all the concepts that we have discussed. In today's class, we talk about how to calculate cost of redeemable debts. Then thereafter, we'll move to cost of convertibles, okay, cost of how to calculate cost of convertible, then we just explain weighted average cost of capital. Please do well to review the materials. Ensure all those principles, all the concepts that that you have been taught from day one to date. Please make sure the thing, let it sink, let it sit there, let it sit there in your memory so that by the time your exam is about a month or thereabouts, all you need to do is just a review. You are not learning it afresh. Please, yearly preparation is very key to your success. Take it very seriously. This is final stage, so leave no stone unturned. Please, it's very important, very, very important. And for those of you that are yet to get relevant materials, you can't be at this stage without having requisite solid material for your studying. You need material for tax. You need material for corporate reporting. You need material for financial, for strategic financial management. You need material for even for audits. Okay, because this is the final stage. At this level, you are seen as being representing the institute. At this level, you are seen as being representing your company. You are seen as being defending proposal with your client. Therefore, nothing short of a professional is expected of you at this level. And that's what I'm encouraging. All those books, all those materials we are recommending for you is your asset, because once you qualify, your places of work, you are still going to be referencing them, because that is the way it works in practice. The content of those materials that is the way it works in practice. You are going to need them. Therefore, this is not the stage whereby you buy a book and because you have qualified, you just dash people. That means you don't know the value of what you have. Your books supposed to be your asset. Supposed to be your asset. Keep it in your bookshelf till life until you have a revision of that book. Maybe you need to buy that revision, another edition of the book. But at all time, it has to remain there in your shelf, so that even tomorrow, You can tell your children, okay, when I was preparing for my ICAN, this is the book I used then, you know. By the time you few years down the line, you go back to those material, you'll be reminiscent, oh, so many things you have done, how you were able to achieve this. Please don't throw away your books. Next time, don't dash it out. If you want to give people, you want to dash it out, give the person the money to go and buy his or her own. Don't give your book. Your book is your asset. Please value it. It is assets. Okay, so, and then for those of you that are yet to get the golden book, the SFM golden book, I will encourage you. I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about. That book is rich in content. It's rich in content. I'm advising you and I'm encouraging you, get it on time. And for those of you that have it, there's no point of you having the book if you can't read it. Please, I beg of you, make use of that book. You can't have that golden book, SFM golden book, and you fail SFM. It is not possible. Check yourself. You are the problem, not the book. Please, I beg of you, take it very seriously. May God Almighty guide you aright and make it very easy for you. Please, as you lay your bed, so also you will lie on it. Your preparation has started. The preparation for your exam has started, and that is why you are in this class. So I will encourage you to be dutiful. Read your books. If you read, certainly you are going to pass. There's no two way about it. But when you keep everything to the last minute, then anxiety will never allow you, because Rome is not built in a day. It is an accumulated effort. It's an accumulated effort. Please take it very seriously. Good night, everyone. I will see you next time by the grace of God. Bye-bye.
Hello,
Good
sir.
night, sir.
Yes, Obi,
Hello, sir. Yeah,
talk to me.
please. Yeah, how will I get the golden book?
Just send me the WhatsApp chat. I will.
Okay, sir.
If you are not in Lagos, we'll find a way of delivering it to your location.
Okay, sir.
Yeah,
Just thank you.
you're welcome. Okay, good night, everyone. Mr. Robert, thank you for your support, for giving me the numbers from your calculator. Thank you. Yeah, and then who again? Who read it? Yes, Biola as well. Then Diamond, and then I think there's another person again. All of you, good night.